Okay, so I'm here today with Mike Hogan, the general manager of the Cincinnati Marriott Northeast. Mike is joining us today. Not only is the GM of that property, but he's also helping out with another property in Cincinnati. So, Mike, welcome to the show. Very happy to have you. If you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Great to be here today, Chris. Mike Hogan. I'm currently at the Cincinnati Marriott Northeast in Mason, Ohio, as well as helping a property on the other side of the river here in Cincinnati at the airport at their Marriott. Been in the industry for 25 years now, various positions, various markets. Somehow 6 or 7 years ago, found my way to Cincinnati, young family, and decided to stay. So that's where I'm at today.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, part of the reason I brought up the two properties is when you and I were talking prior to this, one of the things I thought was fascinating was that, you've got one property that you're helping out right now, which is an airport-based property, and then another property, which is a little bit more suburban. Can you kind of tell me the difference in business and what's happening at those two different properties right now?
Sure. Really a tale of two cities. So, up here in Mason, Ohio, very, surrounded by Fortune 500 companies, heavy residential. Business is still very, very slow. I'd say we're probably about 50% to where we'd like to be. Weekends a little bit better as we've got an amusement park near us, sports travel and things like that help out. But corporate America is definitely not moving at the pace of the leisure markets. Move 39 miles south to the airport market, where you have big Amazon hub. You've got obviously airport business, which is doing very, very well. Association business and people able to get folks into meetings quickly and out of town quickly. It seems to be the trend. It is business is double. You're almost turning away business at the door because of how strong the market is. And that's a market that, could probably use a few more hotel keys. But it's booming. It's booming. And then, downtown, have some ties to downtown is kind of a mixed bag of both. So it's a unique situation, but to see all three markets and how they're kind of fluctuating around the current trend is interesting.
So looking at your property, what are you hearing about companies wanting to come back? I mean, this whole pandemic has been exhausting, I think, for everybody, not only from the hotel side of things, but obviously from the corporate side of things as well. When you're right there by Cintas corporate office, I mean, what are you hearing from them as far as wanting to return travel and kind of get back to some sort of normal?
Really Cintas, I'll use them as the example, just because they have such a rich culture. That is something that's a non-negotiable with them. They're going to preserve that. Face-to-face meetings, travel is something that they believe firmly in. They believe in a heavy training. So that's in talking with them, they're ready to come back. We've already got some smaller meetings on the books with some of their HR departments, some of their senior leadership councils and things of that such. So I think that's the first step. I think they're going to test drive the environment, or test drive the process, if you will, with those, and then hopefully ramp up a little bit more as we head into quarters 2 and 3 of 2022. There are companies here that still aren't willing to talk about it. We have a large Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, so more on the healthcare insurance side of things. They're a little bit more cautious. We have international companies that are really hit or miss. We have one in this week that's German manufacturing. They're all about it. But at the same time, we have, one that's based out of Italy that, because of what has taken place in Italy they're very, very, very slow to want to resume travel, to resume business as normal. So,
okay.
So a little bit of everything, unfortunately. I don't have a one answer fits everything.
Well, it's good. It's crazy to see in a market, like Cincinnati, that you've got everything from, almost stagnant, relying on leisure travel to, wish we had a few more keys over here. It's an incredible, just a small, right around the outer belt there, incredible change in environments. That's insane. So when you are, looking at this business and you're, let's call it the airport property, and you're trying to find talent at a pace quick enough to be able to keep people, to be able to clean the rooms, be able to service the rooms, be able to build a culture. What are you doing on your side of things to try to source that talent? If you're a busy hotel like that in this tough labor market, like what kind of things are you doing to try to get people on board right now?
Um, we've got the same, incentive plans and things like that for referrals and whatnot. Those have been pretty successful. Uh, you know, Really, that's where it's at right now. We've done, the poaching of LinkedIn and trying to network outside of that. We haven't really even in touched like the universities and markets like that to see if there are people coming up. I think what I've seen is people have gotten very creative, knowing that it's a tough market to find people in. Down there by the airport, you have heavy manufacturing, heavy Amazon, if you will, business. So it's tough to compete with that, right? It's tough to find housekeepers that want to clean 18 toilets when you can say, hey, just put stuff in boxes for the same price. And but that's okay, right? So we do heavy referrals is a big one, and then as well as just really tapping into to things that we never would have thought about before. We've got a lot of students that work from us from high school and college age, people that we've always dabbled with in the past, but now we're really leaning heavy on them. People getting out of high school and able to come in for 3 or 4 hours is making a world of difference. You just have to have a lot of them, but
Right.
I guess these are good high school jobs nowadays.
Well, one of the things that's always amazed me about you, is the consistency at the properties you've run. I worked with you in a company where, every time from a guest satisfaction perspective, I thought I was making strides. I turn around and you're like 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me, or right around us. And one of the things that always impressed me was that you had an incredible consistency with your leadership. You had incredible consistency with your team, and I think you're doing something right there. Do you still have that consistency within your team, within your leadership, within the even the hourly ranks post pandemic? Or have you still enjoyed that?
Yeah. And I know we were talking about it earlier. I think at times, obviously, in these conditions, there's times you catch yourself varying from that plan, if you will, deciding maybe to accept standards that maybe weren't the norm. Um, but I've been very blessed to had the ability to surround myself with some really talented people and make them very much a part of the process, and they generally will correct that. So yeah, the culture is alive and well here. Uh, Fortunately, with business, we've been able to grow at a reasonable pace, so we're able to onboard and to train towards that culture, which is critical. Yeah, we've been here for a long time, and we've got a reputation to uphold, so we're not willing to give up on that just yet. So yeah, very pleased to report that business is normal here at Northeast.
Well, with the great resignation, right? The term that you can't see an article without the great resignation being somewhere in there. How are you holding on to your leaders right now? What kind of things are you doing, to not necessarily incentivize them, but to continue to build on that culture that makes them want to stay there when it seems like you could pretty much go anywhere and get a job right now?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think that so many people rely on the financial aspect of things, and we've seen that, right? Big amusement park companies offering kids $20 an hour to put them on rides, and in fast food restaurants having to pay 14, 15, $16 an hour. What I found is it's not necessarily the money that people want all the time. It's really we coined this stuff, right? It's being treated with dignity and respect. It's felt as though they're empowered.
Right.
I think that's a big thing. I think giving people having a sense of a home, family, and the workforce has always been big. These are very troubling times. People are dealing with this pandemic and in the economic environment everywhere they turn, right? They're dealing with it at home, they're dealing with it at church, they're dealing with it in their personal lives and at work. So having that family environment, people to bounce some ideas around, people to go with is very, very important. But as we just kind of alluded to earlier, it's really letting people know that we appreciate all they've done over the years. We can't thank them enough. And as we enter this new world that we live in, it's just critical that they are a part of it, and they help us, bring up the next generation of hoteliers. And they really do appreciate that. I think they appreciate that. They take that very seriously. And again, I'm blessed with talented people that have a passion for it. But yeah, that's really what we've been able to do, and it's working for us.
Okay. So one of the conversations, you mentioned financials, right? So one of the conversations that's being had right now, or should have been had a while ago, but it's starting to be had right now, is that, we've paid our hourly associates, right? We're starting to pay them 18, 19, $20 an hour for some of these jobs. We have leaders who are barely making that much right now. And again, in the hospitality space, we've never really paid all that well. And I think now we're having to adjust. What kind of conversations are you having with your leaders that are saying, hey, that desk agent is only making, like $1,000 a year less than me right now. And I'm here, I've put the hours in, I've got the pedigree. When are we gonna start to see some of that movement? How are you talking to people about that right now?
Yeah, maybe I guess I was blessed to have the freedom to get ahead of it. I remember when we first started looking at wages. I think we started in our housekeeping department, and was fortunate that literally we were going out to hire somebody that usually would say yes, and they was like, hey, I'm not going to say yes unless you agree to this. And it was like, all right, well, if we agree to this, then we knew that it was going to be a snowball effect. So
Right.
we took a hard look at that time. We were fortunate that at that point I think we only had 18 employees. So
Right.
we might have even been less, Chris. So it was great because we were able to put, ink on paper. Literally was, Excel spreadsheet saying, hey, if we're going to go from here to here, let's take this person from here to here. And it encompassed everything. I mean, there were some senior leaders that were compensated well, and they've been in the industry a long time, and they had moved around, and we had found ourselves in a position where we didn't need to be compensated more. But yeah, there was a number of positions that we just had to take up proportionally, and we did that at an early stage. And then when we go to hire people, obviously we use that as a new standard.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, those conversations are tough right now. I've talked to a number of people that, they didn't take the route that you took, right? So they focused entirely on the fact that they had to get work done. And so they were looking, they got caught up in the hourly sweep and the hourly craze. And now they've got front desk managers, housekeeping managers, banquet managers, sous
So sous
chefs.
chefs are the ones that I'm just, yeah. You got
Yeah.
line cooks that are coming out now demanding, $25 an hour, and sous chefs that are making $50,000 a year. They're like, no, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Why would you be?
Yeah.
I've seen clients who are paying 25 or $30 an hour for dishwashers, for stewarding.
Yeah.
Right. And so you do the math on that. You've got, assistant executive sous chefs, number twos in the kitchen making less than that a year. And
Yeah.
so that's a tough conversation to have. And, obviously you're well connected. You've been in the industry for a while. Do you hear that conversation being had, or are more people
Sure.
taking the stance like you are where, we took care of the hourlies, let's take care of the leaders and just kind of go through that motion?
No, and unfortunately, it does. I can tell you that the other property I'm at, helping out with, they haven't done that, and there is definitely some resentment. I guess is probably the best word I can say, is that they feel as though, hey, I had the conversation with somebody the other day. She'd been there for 16 years, and she's over it. She hears about the incentive programs for coming aboard. She hears about the starting pay rate. She hears about, everything that we're doing just to get the job done. And, we had a good conversation. We talked about it. I think that the key thing is that you have to look at maybe restructuring how you do business and saying, okay, well, if we reorganize and reshift some manager responsibilities, can we go from, because you're seeing more of that. You're seeing, there's that middle layer management we haven't been able to retain. We've been,
Right.
we went from line level to executive. So now it's like, well, let's combine some of these mid-level manager positions, and let's make this almost like pseudo director position where we can pay it a little bit more, gives them a little bit more responsibility, but based on business volumes, they're able to manage it because it's not the faucet isn't fully turned on yet. So Yeah, definitely. If it's not managed well, and that's a conversation. That's not a memo that comes out.
Right.
I think you could find yourself in some hot water.
So how do you we're asking leaders to do a little bit more. We're going to compensate you for it. We're going to ask you to do more. What kind of things do you do to prepare them for those positions? Like what kind of development are you doing, or what kind of, as a general manager, what kind of hands-on are you making happen to make sure that, the standards that you've set for your organization aren't being degraded because the work's being spread out, but more that they're ready, that they're going to excel, and they're going to excel, holding those standards that you're looking for.
Yeah, really, it's kind of the same thing we've always done, Chris. It's knowing people in the industry, knowing various hotels, knowing different operators, and saying, hey, I'm going to combine these two positions. This person is strong in this category, but probably needs a little bit of work in this category. Well, who do we know in market, or who do we know that we can have them pair up with? And I've sent people, when you were running hotels, you know how it goes. You're like, hey, they're going to show up on your doorstep. Please take them under your wing and show them. So that's really where it is. It's that old school hospitality. Let's pair you up with somebody that knows what they're doing. Get their phone number. If you have any questions, call them.
Right.
And like I said, business is in this Mason market is returning at such a, it's returning at a very manageable level. So they're growing into the role at a very manageable level as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that a lot of people have, kind of felt is isolated during this whole thing, right? Because like you said, what's happening in your hotel in Mason, that's not happening by the airport. Those
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
are, they're there till 10 o'clock at night trying to get rooms cleaned.
sure.
And it's a little bit more manageable where you are. Um, you know, I think that camaraderie has always been, focused on my hotel. Can I sell the rooms? Can I service the rooms? Can I move my GSS numbers? That guest satisfaction. Can I retain my employees? Do you feel like it's becoming more of a community as everybody's trying to kind of piece this whole thing back together again?
Yeah, I can definitely tell you that I've gotten a lot more calls. I've got a lot more people that are willing to want to work with one another and value that relationship. Cincinnati is a robust enough market where we've got a number of hotels with the company that we work for. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely working with a lot more people than I have in the past. And I think you and I were talking about it maybe earlier about we've been blessed to we open positions just to see who walks through the door, and if we're able to get our hands on some talented people, we might bring them in, and then we might actually have them go out and assist other hotels. So almost use this as an opportunity to train, and then send people out and have them save the hotel world if they
Now, I know hiring has to be discouraging. So, what are you telling your team when they're striking out, or they feel like they can't find any talent? What are you telling them to try to keep focused on the right talent and the right people?
um, really, again, just reaching out to people in the industry and finding out where they're having successes. And what we've seen is that, we might have success here in Mason and housekeeping, but we might not be having help in the culinary world, where we might be able to go 20 miles down the road and it might be a flip there. So it's really just trying to think outside the box. But again, going back to we can't drop our standards. It's never worked to hire a warm body. I know that we work with Upshift, and I know that our airport hotel has done great things with the culinary team with Upshift, being able to bring in people and train them at a level that we can operate, and then hopefully look at some permanent placements after that. So it is it's different per se, but really it's just that old school mentality. Sometimes you got to pick up the phone, you got to call people, you got to look for best practices, you got to not compromise. And then when you do get them in the door from an interview process, now more than ever, you've got to really, really, really turn on the charm. You've got to make this person feel special. I had somebody, we hired a night auditor, and from hotels how hard night auditors are to find. And the first thing I said when this person walked through the door and we had a great interview with them, look, send them flowers. Send that young woman flowers. Let her know we appreciate her time. So again, nothing Nothing too different, but just taking just a different spin on it. It's something you have to focus on every day, though. I probably spend 2 or 3 hours a day just focusing on recruiting, retention, and making sure that we're constantly going back and looking at it, because it's an ongoing thing.
Well, there's a best practice right there. I mean, 2 to 3 hours a day on just retention and your team. I mean, that's the focus everybody needs right now is just,
Yeah,
pay attention to your people. Make sure that you're out there, that you understand, you have your finger on the pulse, that you're not caught off guard and you're taking care of your team. I love the story about the night auditor. That's great. When
yeah.
a night auditor comes through, you almost don't want to let them leave the building without fitting them for a uniform and, making sure they know exactly how to get back here tomorrow. Right.
Sure, sure. No, it's you take that kind of stuff for granted. I mean, I remember being recruited by a company, and I went to the airport after the interview, and I'd been upgraded to first class, and I really didn't even have that great of an interview, but that simple act by that whoever made the call for the $60 upgrade, that really made a huge difference. And you think
Right.
about what recruiting costs and everything go, and it's really that mentality. But yeah, the spending time on it every day is critical, Chris. It's hard. I get it. People are out there cleaning rooms. People are checking people in. People are working, 18, 20 hours a day. But it's never going to get better. You know, you,
Right.
you, you got to make it better at some point. I tell people it's like, people that want to lose weight, I get it. Working out for an hour a day is tough, but it's never going to fix itself unless you make that commitment. So,
Right.
yeah, I think once you get in the rhythm of it, maybe it's not 2 hours every day. Maybe it's an hour here, 3 hours there, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and this is kind of a veer on a tangent that I just, I know you're so big on standards, and we talked about standards. Hotel standards are changing pretty much every day at this point in time.
Sure.
It seems like some companies are all in on masks for everybody, and we're going to disinfect everything. And you've got people running around with looking like Ghostbusters with the little spray packs and all the rest of the things. What kind of standards do you see kind of returning, like stay over service or the personal check-in versus things that we may see coming down, like, the automated check-ins or the app being the primary way to be able to get in and out. I mean, what kind of things are you seeing that they're gonna be new standards versus things that we can expect to change in the markets?
I think you're going to see a lot more hybrid, really where it's guest request. I think that, the mobile check-ins and the stayover services and the do not disturbs were kind of things that we always had. But what I'm finding is that most customers are on one side of the fence. Some people want to do the mobile check-in. They don't want anybody in their room. They want to sneak out a side door, and that's fine. I completely respect that. And other people are, they're on planes or in airports. They're in meetings. They're fully vaccinated, which we require that for the no mask, and that's refreshing to see too. So it's difficult, I guess, in the hotel world because yeah, we want everybody to be safe, and we completely understand the pandemic and all that it's done, and we respect that, and we're sensitive to that. But at the same time, we want people to come together. We want people to enjoy their time with one another. We want people to eat and drink in our restaurants, and so it's tough. But I think moving forward, it's definitely going to be more of a hybrid. I think you're going to see a lot. I mean, right now we're cleaning stayover service, but it's on request where it's not automated.
Okay.
So it's people, I think, just getting ahead of it and checking the boxes on their apps and letting them know what we want to do, and as
Okay.
hoteliers, just staying on top of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think hybrid is definitely better than automated.
Yeah,
I think everybody would be happy. Some happy median in between there, right? I've definitely had those days where I don't want to talk to anybody. It's easier just to
yeah,
get in, get out. I've got that, but then I've got my family. I need all the help I can get when I travel. So
sure,
I would be really excited to have people help us out and talk to us. So absolutely get
absolutely.
that. So as you're ushering in, this new world of hospitality, obviously we've got labor challenges, right? So we're bringing all kinds of people back into the industry as businesses starting to return or has returned. What kind of things are you talking to leaders about? What kind of advice are you giving to leaders about as they're coming in and they're starting to work in this industry either for the first time or trying to elevate from that hourly to leadership positions?
Really, it's it's the same message. I think now it just means more to me because I've seen what happens when you don't do it. As we kind of talked about at the beginning of this, is a lot of people or operations have been forced to kind of drop standards and just rush out to try to deal with the onslaught of business or try to rebuild all of a sudden automated, and they're not really focused on the training. They're not really focused on the selection process. They're not really focused about the details. So what I tell you newer managers, younger managers, aspiring managers, it's you've got to have standards. You've got to remember that you've got to hold yourself and you've got to hold your product, you got to hold your department to a different level. That's no more important today than it's ever been. But the good thing is that today I think customers are recognizing that. I think there's enough people out there that are struggling, and we see it, right? We go out to eat with our families and we see help wanted everywhere, and the wait time on food, and the service is rushed, and the restaurants are dirty, and all that. So now more than ever, you can stand out just by being that person. So I think if I go back and when I do talk to young managers, it's just don't give up, have these standards, learn them today, focus on them, because they're all the right things. People that love the hospitality industry were brought up with very strict standards. You and I know them all too well. And that's what makes it enjoyable. That's what we like about the industry. I wouldn't be sitting here today with you if I was allowed to come in and just, chaos was allowed to ensue, and there was no order, and there was no standards, and, bed linen was allowed to be wrinkled, and all that good stuff. So really just to tell them to stay focused on standards, training.
Well, that's awesome. And, when you look at the theme of what we've talked about here, right? I mean, it's, pay attention to your leaders. I love to spend, 2 to 3 hours a day, because that time can be filled with all kinds of great things. But again, kind of at the heart of everything is just maintain your standards, right? Learn the standards. And if you're a leader who's struggling to teach the standards, get help. You don't have to do it yourself. Send somebody to another hotel. Don't be afraid to send somebody somewhere to get some help, because somebody's going to do the same to you. We all have different strengths right now. Everybody's rebuilding at a different pace, at a different level. So definitely, I think that's a great message. I think you really nailed it. You've always had phenomenal properties and great teams. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. So again, Mike, thank you for joining us here on the podcast, and looking forward to have you on again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Good luck.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.